Another day, another banger. Today we'll be going over the movie franchise Predator. This sci-fi action-packed recap will be in chronological order, starting off with Prey. We will then be moving to the originals, including both Predator and Predator 2. After that, we will end it off with Predators and lastly the Predator. Without further ado, make sure you're relaxed and as always enjoy the recap. Prey begins with a woman telling a story of a monster coming to Earth. In the northern Great Plains in 1719, a woman awakens with her dog by her side. Naru, a wannabe hunter in the Comanche Nation, goes about her daily life in the tribe. Going deep into the woods, Naru begins training by tossing her axe repeatedly at a tree. Showing great accuracy and strength, she spots some tracks in the ground and has found her next target. Discovering a white-tailed deer, she is about to take it out when a loud sound scares the creature away. Chasing it down, the white-tailed deer flees for dear life when Naru catches up to it but misses her shot. Her dog begins whining just then, and Naru investigates to see it has been caught in a trap. Freeing the dog, she goes to have a look at the trap when another loud sound from the clouds comes out of nowhere. Going to have a look, she sees something breaking through the clouds and onto Earth. Some while later, Naru trains with her brother, Tabe, who is one excellent shot. Telling him that she is ready, Tabe tells her it is foolish to hunt something that is hunting her. Going back to the village, Naru doesn't really mix or mingle with anyone and heads straight to a tent. Meeting with her mother, Aruka, she helps her with some medicine for the chief's bad knee. Lecturing her daughter on why she has this obsession for hunting, Tabe walks in with the last kill he just made. Going off to grab something called orange tassia, the scene cuts to a ship flying away and dropping off a new arrival on Earth. The greatest hunter alive, named the Predator. With Naru grabbing the plant her mother asked for, she returns to the village to hear the tribal men preparing themselves as one of their own was taken by a lion. Going to find their comrade, the men walk through the woods with their spears and arrows at the ready. The last man suddenly stops and hears the predators clicking when Tabe stops him from shooting as Naru has followed them. But the others wanting Naru to go back to the village, Tabe convinces them otherwise, as she knows her medicine and may be of use. Quite near to the group, a snake finds its next prey and kills it. Knowing something is around, the snake is quickly killed by the predator who has a cloaking device on. The others in the meantime continue through the woods and find some lion poop. Knowing their target is very close, they discover their comrade who is alive but quite injured. Applying the necessary medicine on the wounds, the others make a makeshift stretcher, and all work is complete as night envelops the land. Tabe then tells the team to move along as he wants to hunt the lion, but Naru tells him that something scared the cat away from its own den. Not listening to her, he heads off with the team carrying their injured companion back to the village. The dog then starts barking as it found something and Naru goes to have a look. Finding the snake from earlier skinned and its blood all around the surrounding trees alongside massive track marks, Naru says she is going back to warn her brother, and one of the other men decides to join her. Quickly rushing through the woods, Naru begins to track down Tabe, but he finds her first and snuffs out the torches. Telling her brother of the skinned snake and the massive track marks she found, Tabe says they're in the lion's den now and need to focus. Finding its eating spot, Naru wants to bait out the creature and Tabe agrees and says it's time for her test. To tell the lion this is as far as it goes and to kill it, with Naru and the other man atop the trees waiting for the lion. She is being put on by the man for being a useless hunter when he is randomly ripped out of the trees and dragged away by the lion. The lion quickly turns its attention to Naru and pushes her back. A weird sound is then heard from the distance, and as Naru looks, she is pushed off the tree and knocked out. Some while later, she awakens in her tent and her mother says that Tabe carried her back home, not allowing her to return back to the lion's den. The villagers outside call out her brother's name and everyone rushes to see him returning with the lion dead on his shoulders. The village chief immediately gathers everyone around and promotes Tabe to become the war chief. Jealous of her brother's ascension in rank and his ability to hunt, Naru walks away while everyone celebrates. Finding her trying to leave, Tabe cuts her off and doesn't allow her to find the creature responsible for the snake's death. Tabe tells his sister he had to carry her back and doesn't want her leaving. The following morning, Naru is awoken by her mother and told to tag along with the women of the tribe. Not doing as they do, Naru wants to prove to everyone she is a hunter and will do so on her own. Traversing the great landscape with only her dog by her side, she finds her first clue. Measuring the size of the creature she believes is somewhere around, a scene cuts to the predator watching a wolf staring at its next meal. Chasing its prey, it almost catches it, but the predator beats him to it. Challenging the wolf, the beast doesn't run away and instead jumps at the predator, which problematically proves to be fatal for it. Screaming as it won yet another duel, the scene switches back to Naru, who can't even take out a bunny. Going back to practicing, it is quite surprising she isn't a spectacular hunter. Finally getting a kill, she makes food for herself and the dog. The next day, she continues through the empty plains when the scene yet again cuts to the predator spraying a weird substance on the wolf, leaving only its skull as a trophy. Cloaking itself again, Naru has no idea what she is going up against, but does find many dead buffaloes all around. While the predator goes through the forest looking for his next target, Naru does the same but loses her dog. Walking towards him, she sinks into the grass below and tries getting out. The predator, meanwhile, discovers Naru has placed multiple items on the buffalo's head and wants her to be the next target. As Naru slowly escapes the disgusting place she's in, she attempts to tie an axe with a rope on it on some trees. Sinking lower and lower, she eventually gets the job done and escapes the mud. After some time, the dog returns to Naru with some food. Soon enough, though, Naru and the dog spot a vicious bear feasting. The bear problematically looks around as it can smell more food nearby. Naru randomly breaks her weapon, causing the bear to immediately run at her. The dog decides to sacrifice itself and distracts the bear. This allows Naru time to fix her weapon, and she spots the beast and fires a shot only to miss. The bear chases her down and traps her behind a broken tree. Fighting for dear life, Naru is going to die when the bear stops and turns around. Going toe-to-toe with the predator, it makes him bleed and injures him. The bear then decides to run at the predator and is immediately killed. The predator grabs the bear and holds it above his head as another victory, with Naru quickly taking off downstream. With the current pushing her some distance away, she seems to have escaped for the time being. Walking through the woods, she hears a sound around her, only to find the tribal men saying her brother sent them to look for her. Finding out her brother is somewhere near the predator, she tells the men she saw a monster from one of their childhood stories, and they all laugh at her. Not believing her one bit, she goes to leave, but is physically stopped. Getting into a fight with one of the men, she gets on top of him and lays a couple punches and bites him before getting up. Getting dog-shotted and bullied by the men, the predator watches all this take place. Sitting Naru down and having a small break, one of the men goes to do his business and Naru hears the predator around. The man having a leak also hears something strange, and so do the other men. Getting their arrows ready, they all wait and only see a possum and laugh at Naru, going to show her she is crazy. The tribesmen quickly get scared when the predator aims its 3-lasered weapon on him. Getting shot 3 times and killed, the men are in disbelief as their enemy is invisible. One of the men, however, gets a lucky shot and hits the predator. With its cloaking device glitching and revealing itself, it roars, and the men stupidly decide to challenge it. Fighting it and holding out longer than I expected, Naru goes to free herself when one of her comrades is slaughtered. Another one of her people attacks the predator from the back and stabs its foot. Finally freeing herself, Naru witnesses another slaughter when the predator problematically looks at her. Sprinting for her life, the man that used the bathroom earlier grabs her and says to hide. With the thudding footsteps of the demon nearby, it can see heat signatures in the grass and aims his weapon at the duo, who barely manage to dodge it. Sprinting for their lives, the predator butchers the tribesmen, and soaked in blood, it chases Naru, who unfortunately gets stuck in a trap. With the predator right there looking at her, a couple of French hunters come out of nowhere and decide to knock Naru out. Awakening that night, Naru finds herself stuck in a cage with hundreds of Frenchmen nearby. Injured from the trap from earlier, the leader of the men turns around and taunts Naru. Mocking her, a translator approaches and asks about the predator. Surprised that they know about the demon, they explain to her that it is a hunter and they want it. Not wanting to help them, a second cage is opened and Tabe is taken out of it, cutting him up for a laugh. They place both Tabe and Naru as bait for the predator while they wait with their guns. Tabe decides to lighten up the situation and laughs at his sister for picking the universe's hardest predator as her final test. While the Frenchmen watch, the crew from behind them are slaughtered and the horses take off running. One Frenchman attempts to get away but is killed, and the predator has found his next 2 victims. Standing in the howling winds, he undoes his cloak and walks towards the duo. Naru smartly deduces the predator wants to hunt and doesn't want useless targets. The predator simultaneously steps on a bear trap and roars when Frenchmen appear from both sides and yank the chains to completely trap the beast. It retaliates, however, and uses its tech to annihilate the men and free himself. With brute strength and a shield that cannot be broken, the men stand no chance. Killing them off with perfect fashion one at a time, it slaughters whoever it looks at. With hundreds of bullets heading its way, it presses a device on its arms and Naru smartly grabs the trap and frees herself. With the alien climbing on the treetops, Tabe goes to get some horses when the men around see the predator drop a device on the ground. 3 objects then come out of it, and the men all die a painful death. Naru, in the meantime, sneaks her way into the camp and wants to rescue her dog. Spotting it is about to be killed, that decision ends up being fatal for all the men around as Naru hones in the training John Wick has taught her. Knowing exactly how to act when your puppy is threatened, she does well and stops the fight. Freeing the dog, she tells him to flee back home, and it does. Back at the battlefield, meanwhile, the predator is patching up his wounds and is ready for the next hunt. The translator from earlier then appears and tells Naru he needs medicine. Offering her his gun and how to use it in exchange, she accepts the deal and gives him medicine to lower his body temperature and his blood flow. Taking out the alien tech in the man's leg, she puts it in her bag and the Frenchman tells her exactly how to use his gun. Once the medicine kicks in, Naru leaves the man, and within seconds he attempts to run for cover but instead decides to play dead when the predator approaches. Discovering a blood trail nearby, the alien believes the Frenchman is dead as the medicine cooling his temperature down cancels out the heat signature. With Naru hiding behind a tree and watching, the man stupidly screams and is killed. Naru's dog then returns, and the lasers are pointed at it, but it is saved by Tabe. With the alien ferocious about losing its helmet, he targets Tabe but misses. Putting its gear back on, Naru sees an opening to use the gun, but it doesn't fire. Instead, she screams, causing the predator to turn and get stabbed by Tabe. Also shooting an arrow at it, Naru gets the gun ready as Tabe goes head-to-head with the beast. Going invisible, Naru joins her brother and they silently wait for an opening. Tabe tells his sister she needs to run, but it is too late and Tabe is stabbed. With the predator revealing itself, Tabe manages to injure the creature before his life is ended. With this diversion being enough for Naru to escape, she washes the blood off her hands and is distraught. Once her mother hears about her son's death, she becomes saddened and angry. But Naru isn't a quitter, and with her dog still alive and by her side, she sees a Frenchman still alive in the distance. Wanting to kill him, she stops herself and pulls out the alien's weapon from earlier. Knocking out the man, she waits with him until he recovers consciousness again. Screaming at the sight of losing his leg, he attempts to grab the gun in front of him when Naru says that he made her brother bleed and now he will bleed. Eating the medicine that cools down the body temperature, the predator's clicking sound is heard. Spotting the Frenchman with a gun in his hand, the beast approaches and walks past Naru. Deciding to kill the target, it butchers him with Naru simply watching him from behind. Aiming her gun at the predator, she gets a clean headshot before grabbing its mask and running away. Creating a trap and placing the mask there, the alien follows a blood trail and notices the trap. With Naru in the treetops, she jumps on the demon and stabs it repeatedly before being pushed off. The dog then runs onto the scene to save Naru, who is chased down. The alien then misses his shot and stabs a tree instead, and Naru makes it lose an arm. Still fighting on though, Naru is on the back foot and dodges the attacks and weapons of her opponent. Eventually, getting slammed on the ground, she pushes her head in between two rocks and uses the time to stab the creature again. With a demonic roar and last stand, Naru runs at the predator and both stabs its leg, then ties a rope around his neck to drag him into the mud to drown. This doesn't work, however, and the predator is one of the most feared opponents in the universe. Aiming its gun at Naru, the laser pointer on the mask is placed directly on its head, and after Naru says this is as far as you go, the predator fires its weapon only for it to divert from the path and blow its own brains out. Managing to get the hardest kill anyone in her tribe has seen, she returns back home covered in the predator's blood and also its head as a trophy. Showing the chief it was real and that the Frenchmen are nearby, she suggests moving. Everyone in the tribe begins chanting, and Naru has officially shown them all she is one hell of a hunter and the new war chief. Predator opens up with a spaceship flying through the stars and landing on Earth. In the Latin American country Valverde, a chopper lands on a beach with army personnel all around. An elite commando unit disembarks the chopper with the leader Dutch being escorted to meet General Phillips. Knowing each other from previous missions, the general explains that 18 hours ago a chopper holding the cabinet minister went missing. Apparently swaying off course into enemy territory, they are most likely in the hands of a rebel guerrilla group. Dutch then notices his old friend from the CIA named Dylan and goes to say hi.
You son of a... What's the matter? Had enough?
Make it easy on yourself, Dutch.
Okay. Now, what do we gotta do?
Dutch, the general's saying that a couple of our friends are about to get squeezed. We need the best. Simple setup. One-day operation. We pick up their trail at the chopper, run them down, grab those hostages, and bounce back across the border before anybody knows we were there.
Once you reach your objective, Dylan will evaluate the situation and take charge.
With the mission officially kicking off, two choppers fly through the jungle and the men inside get prepped. With the heavy hitter Blaine listening to a beat, Mac alongside Poncho try to pick on Hawkins, who isn't as weak as he looks. Billy also gets into the zone, and with the helicopters almost at the rendezvous point past the border, there is going to be no backup, and this mission will be officially off the books. With the team having a laugh before they land, it is clear Blaine doesn't really appreciate Dylan tagging along. Arriving at the drop zone, both teams connect their cables and begin dropping to ground level. One after the other, the choppers take off, and now it's time for the real mission to take place. Going through the jungle, the commando unit know there may be enemy units nearby and find the cabinet minister's chopper stuck in the trees. Going to investigate, the men discover some blood inside as well as two dead pilots. Telling Dutch the chopper was stripped apart and that the enemies had technology beyond what was anticipated, Billy tells Dutch that 12 enemies took 2 people from the helicopter, but weirdly enough 6 men wearing US Army boots followed the hostiles. Dylan shrugs it off as another rebel patrol group, but something isn't right. Continuing through the forest, the men all do their part, with Billy tracking the hostiles and taking a small drinking break. Hearing something crack and move next to him, he goes to have a look and finds 3 skinned human bodies tied up on trees with vultures lurking around. Finding out they were US Marines, Dutch takes Dylan to the side and wants to know what the hell is going on. Dylan claims he doesn't know, as there was no operation happening on this side of the border. Confused as to why the guerrillas skinned the men, Billy tells Dutch what happened here was strange, as there was a firefight, but the men shot in all directions. The hostiles had no tracks though, and it doesn't make any sense, getting their weapons ready for a war. The men continue forward when we get to see that a predator is in the trees watching them. Dylan, the fool, accidentally slips and Mac tells him,
"I don't care who you are back in the world. I'll bleed you. Real quiet.
With the rest of the commando squad going prone and slowly staking out the area, they find the hostile squad. Seeing armed men and quite a lot of soldiers, one of the Americans are shot point blank and Dutch has had enough. Telling his crew that one of the hostages were killed, they need to make a move now. Splitting up into multiple groups, Blaine and Mac go to take out the hostiles watching over the base. Blaine notices some tripwires though, and Mac disarms the explosive. Taking out their first enemy combatant, Mac and Blaine kill off the men on the outpost. Dutch then silently makes his way to the base and smartly puts a bomb onto one of their vehicles, and pushes it in the middle of the base. Triggering it, then throwing more bombs, the shootout begins. The commando unit fire at will from all around, and the enemies retaliate but are picked off one by one. Blaine uses some heavy artillery, and Dylan also proves his worth. With bombs being fired at each hostile, they decide to try and escape in a chopper, but Dutch makes that impossible. Killing more enemies, Dutch deserves a medal as he just got a kill chain. With Blaine having fun and firing his machine gun, bullets do not stop and have been fired in the thousands. With the hostages in sight, Dutch kills 2 more men and orders his men to chase the rest of the enemies away. Hearing someone behind him, Dutch knocks out the person, only to reveal it is a woman. Mac then comes running in and tells Dutch the other hostage is dead, but he was a CIA agent, not a cabinet minister, and was being interrogated by Russian military advisors. Realizing he was lied to, the other men finish off the enemy troops when Dylan begins looking through the paperwork for something when Dutch grabs him and yanks him against the wall. Dylan reveals they just stopped an invasion and explains that his men were killed in the chopper, and they were trying to find this base for months. Dutch is dirty that his friend lied and had no courage and no honor. Hawkins calls Dutch and tells him air surveillance is showing guerrillas all over the place. Having half an hour to escape, Dylan demands they take the woman named Anna with them, as she can give them a whole nother network. What everyone is yet to realize as they pick their extraction point is that a demon waits in the trees and watches them. Hawkins then decides to go to Billy and tell a joke which causes him to laugh. The Predator listens to this, and Billy also realizes there is something around. With the Predator still watching, it makes its clicking sound and listens to the men's conversation and repeats their words before grabbing a scorpion that Mac had killed earlier. With the rest of the unit, meanwhile, they go a meter at a time. Moving through the enemy-infested jungle, this is not their territory or their ideal terrain. However, they go to a risky second extraction point site, the only place a chopper would dare to pick them up. Anna, in the meantime, decides to dupe Dylan and escape but is quickly apprehended. Threatened with her life if she tries it again, the crew all immediately stop their movement. With all of them noticing Billy is spooked by something, his instincts are never wrong. Dutch quietly approaches his commando with his gun on the ready and asks him what the problem is. Billy, not saying a word, just looks ahead, then says there is something in the trees. While the Predator watches, the men do the same and remain until Billy says it must be in his head. Anna then dupes the soldiers once again and goes sprinting through the woods. The men quickly give chase, and so does the Predator. Soon enough, Anna is caught by Hawkins, who tells her to please stop when out of nowhere he is killed. The rest of the team run towards him when he is dragged away, finding Anna soaked in blood and a blood trail leading deeper into the jungle. They follow the blood tracks and discover the blood ending with only pieces of Hawkins. Asking Anna what the hell happened, she says the jungle came alive and just took him. With an argument breaking out, Dutch shuts them up and believes Anna as she did not run away. Realizing that something is there with them, Dutch demands his man's body to be found. With the crew doing a perimeter check in unison, Dutch runs into one massive snake. Calmly walking away, the team haven't thought to look up to find their comrade. But it wouldn't make a difference anyways as he's dead. With Blaine seeing some movement, he readies his gun only to find an animal when he is suddenly killed by unworldly tech. The others hear this and go running to the scene when Mac runs into the Predator. Leaving him alone, he fires at the alien and misses all his shots. Picking up Blaine's gun and firing, the rest of the troops all hold down the trigger alongside Mac. Using almost every single bullet in their arsenal, they practically destroy the entire forest in the process. Mac, still in shock, finally lets go of the trigger to see the mess they've made, quickly telling his comrades of the demon he saw. They see Blaine's injuries and are puzzled to say the least. Discovering no bodies in the carnage they made, Dutch realizes the situation they're in and wants to get on the radio, and wants Mac to go to a defensive position above the ridge. Anna in the meantime finds some of the Predator's blood and wipes it on her pants before walking away. With Mac setting up traps, he tells Dutch nothing will come close without them knowing. With Mac upset about losing his friends, he lays beside the corpse of Blaine and puts his comrade to rest. Anna's pants in the meantime is glowing green with the Predator's blood when the scene cuts to the Predator deactivating its cloaking device. Grabbing the necessary tools, it begins to patch itself up and close its injuries but roars when it hurts itself. With Dylan's extraction being denied due to the bogies nearby, they are told to retreat, and Dutch tells Dylan it feels bad to be betrayed. Mac then joins the group and tells them that no human being could have survived the amount of bullets and grenades they let off. The thing he saw must be something out of this world. Asking Billy why he was so spooked earlier as he fears no man, he tells them.
There's something out there waiting for us, and it ain't no man.
That night, Mac reminisces about the good old days with his fallen brother. Promising to slaughter the animal that done this, the team hear footsteps nearby and a trap goes off. It seems a wild pig made its way onto the scene and Mac mistakenly thinks it's the predator. Accidentally leaving the girl on her own, the crew run back to find her too scared to move. The crew then problematically discover Blaine's body missing and the predator seems to have passed through the traps undetected. The following day, the men come to the conclusion the thing chasing them is a hunter. Suspecting it is using the trees, Dutch goes to Anna and presses her for information only to be told it was like a chameleon. Also being told it was injured and bleeding, Dutch says if it bleeds it can die. Placing more traps around the forest again, this time they take the treetops into account. With Dylan complaining on how useless the new traps feel, he nonetheless helps. Once complete, the team all remains still and wait. Calming themselves down, Dutch is confident the creature will come through this passage as the surrounding area is covered with booby traps. With the team hearing something in the tree line but not seeing anything, the team dismisses it. But Dutch isn't falling for it and goes to inspect the sound. With everyone remaining still and silent, the intensity drops. And Dutch lowers his weapon just as one of the traps launches and catches the predator, who shoots itself out and hides behind a tree. Revealing itself for a split second for Dylan to see, Mac chases the creature and the rest of the team need to leave for the chopper. Dylan volunteers to save Mac and tells Dutch to escape. With one of the men injured, Dutch and Anna help him move as Mac stupidly chases the hunter. With Dylan right behind him, also looking for revenge for his fallen team, he can hear a voice telling him over here. Mac silently pulls Dylan into hiding and points to the predator's whereabouts. Dylan also gets excited and makes a plan to exterminate the monster. Silently walking one way while Mac walks the other, they both remain low and prone when the predator aims its weapon at Mac and puts his life to an end. Suspecting another man is around, it goes looking for him as the others quickly retreat to the chopper. Back with Dylan, I personally don't like his odds of survival, and once he sees his friend dead, the creature does its clicking sound to taunt its next target. With Dylan spotting the demon, he raises his gun to shoot, but the predator beats him to it and cuts his arm off. Getting up front and personal, the predator uses its close-range weapon and kills Dylan. Billy has had enough of this and tosses his weapon away. Ripping off his shirt and pulling out his dagger, he intentionally makes wounds, and the predator appears and sees him. His screams are then heard from the other men, and the alien suddenly appears and shoots their already injured comrade. With only Dutch and Anna remaining, Dutch fires away and gets shot but is still alive to tell Anna,
Get to the chopper!
Crawling, Dutch quickly gets back up and starts sprinting through the place. With the hunter watching and keeping up with him, he accidentally slips and falls a solid 20 meters down into some water. Continuing to go down a waterfall, Dutch fights to stay atop the water and miraculously swims to safety. Getting out of the water and onto the mud, a splash from behind is pretty bad news. With the predator hot on his tail, Dutch tries blending in with a fallen tree. As the alien emerges from the water and looks for its target, its suit malfunctions and turns off, causing Dutch to get a clean view of the predator who cannot see him. Spotting a rodent nearby that is quickly incinerated by the predator, it seems to have lost Dutch for the time being, who has coincidentally found its weakness. Later on, Dutch knows exactly what he must do in order to protect himself and avenge his fallen comrades. Making more traps all around the place, this time it will be different. Collecting the men's skulls as trophies for itself, the predator screams its victory for the forest to hear. Once night envelops the land, Dutch continues making things and has a makeshift arsenal ready for himself. As the predator watches over its precious possessions, Dutch completely rubs mud all over himself from top to bottom in preparation for this duel. As the moon is high and the night is young, Dutch initiates his war cry. Quickly realizing the challenge being put forth, Dutch intentionally lights a fire and climbs a tree to see where the predator will appear from. Waiting and watching, the predator finally makes its move and coincidentally walks directly next to Dutch and doesn't see him. With Dutch swinging away and remaining dead still, he isn't spotted and the mud seems to be working. The predator watches the fire and Dutch takes out his makeshift weapon and ignites an explosive that causes the predator to react. Realizing that he has to move as the creature has caught onto his location, it fires shot after shot until he jumps on the ground and hides behind some rocks. With the alien's technology partially damaged from the explosion, Dutch goes running and the predator finds some branches moving and follows. Coming directly above its target, the predator knows he is near. And I swear I wouldn't be breathing from fear if I was Dutch. Finding an opening to grab his next weapon and being ready for phase 2 of his plans, the last remaining soldier throws a rock, causing the alien to fire a shot and let off his position. Throwing a spear and hearing the predator roar, Dutch approaches to see its green blood on the ground. Slowly chasing the alien hunter, the blood glows in the dark so it isn't too hard to track. But walking right below the creature, he is almost spotted and killed until he causes an explosion as a distraction to jump into the water below. But that proves to be a big problem as the mud has washed off. With the predator easily finding and grabbing a hold of him, Dutch is held by his throat and inspected from one side to the next. letting him go. For some reason, the jungle hunter isn't just a hunter but a warrior who takes off his mask and wants to honor his hardest adversary with a fair fight. With Dutch seeing its face for the first time, he says,
"You one ugly motherfucker."
The alien, also known as a Yautja, shows off its strength. Starting the fight off by pushing its opponent around, Dutch knows he needs to run as he constantly gets beat up. Struggling to move or breathe, Dutch crawls on the ground to another one of his traps. With the predator playing along for the time being, it comes to ground level and notices something's up. Even when Dutch mocks it, it doesn't listen and smartly comes from around, but Dutch anticipated the creature's intelligence, and his trap works to perfection. Believing the fight is finished, he is dead wrong as the jungle hunter makes some noise. With Dutch planning on killing it, he sees it injured and covered in its blood. Showing it mercy as it showed him, it begins talking using its clicking sounds, then jumps on its device and presses buttons on it. Remaining still, it does one evil laugh and Dutch gets the vibe that he needs to run, with the creature laughing quite ridiculously. A bomb activates in a massive explosion, even making the helicopter glitch. The general sees the explosion, and out of the smoke and wreckage comes out the last remaining elite commando, a warrior deemed fit for even the best hunters in the galaxy. And with that, the chopper arrives in time to extract him from what will be recorded as his hardest mission ever. Predator 2 opens into the bustling streets of Los Angeles, 1997, where the Predator stalks the city in its infrared eyesight. The city seems to be in chaos, with crime and violence running rampant. We are taken into a massive gunfight in the bare streets. A drug gang is having a full firefight with the police. The gang lands some shots and police are getting wounded by the second. The officers then begin to push through with armored shields, only to be blown to smithereens by a grenade launcher, causing the police back into a retreat. The drug dealers begin to celebrate, clearly winning this battle. Onlooking news crews begin to cry out to the world about the state of their city, saying that the Colombian and Jamaican drug gangs control the streets and the police have no power. At this time, a car speeds through, right into the war zone. Lieutenant Mike Harrigan exits the vehicle and pushes forward to the front line. He asks his fellow officers to cover him while he drives further into the gang. He creates another barricade further in, allowing the officers to take in the wounded. He and the cops also start landing shots, neutralizing some of the enemy forces. Mike moves around and flanks the gang with a machine gun and completely dispatches the rest of the group. All the while, the Predator is watching, just waiting to select a target. In a warehouse, the rest of the dealers are getting prepped for all-out war, with some very heavy firepower. As the police are about to go in, explosions and screams are heard from the inside. Mike and the team slowly move in and break through a door to find scared women and children. As they move out, one of the gang members bursts through a door, firing into it in absolute terror while hitting a cop. He walks onto the roof where Mike follows him and is shot at, but Mike is able to kill him quickly. Turning around thinking he heard something, he is unable to see the creature watching him closely. In the building, the gang is in a bloody and dead mess. Something killed them, and it wasn't the police. They've been cut into pieces and the police suspect it to be another rival gang. They look up, and when they see a body hanging from the ceiling, they all immediately scratch their heads wondering how he got there. They soon clear out and wait for forensics to do their jobs. Outside, Mike is being reprimanded by an FBI agent who berates him for going into the building when the FBI had ordered them not to. Mike says he had no choice and they were in a war zone. They get into a screaming match, and just then a helicopter lands and several suited agents come out with highly regulated equipment for a purpose Mike doesn't know. Back at the police station, it is swarmed with people who need help more than they can help. Mike goes to talk to the captain, who says Mike was in the wrong for disobeying the feds. He says Mike needs to play nice as they now have jurisdiction over this war on drugs. Peter Keyes, a federal agent in the DEA, enters the room, introducing himself. He explains they are doing everything they can and have many undercover agents to try and stop the gangs from invading the city. Mike goes to talk to Danny, who is still puzzled as to what happened to the drug dealers in the warehouse. Whoever killed them didn't use a gun and did not take any money or drugs. A person named Lambert comes in and introduces himself to Mike. He will be his new partner. Mike tells him that the city is in a war zone and there are no heroes in his squad, so be a team player. At this time, a group of dealers bust into a high-rise apartment and find a Colombian dealer and tie him up to the ceiling. The dealers say they work for King Willie, and he is the new king of the streets. They then pull out a knife and kill the Colombian dealer. But right then, 3 red dots point at one of the dealers and a laser is shot, killing him instantly. The remaining men all begin to open fire in panic, hoping they killed whatever shot him. However, the Predator is not dead and begins to attack back. He fires his weapon and begins to slash the dealers up, until their leader is left, who is then killed with spectacular fashion right on his head. The police soon arrive at the scene. Mike and the other police are ordered not to enter, but they disobey. They find swarms of bodies in the building, all mutilated, skinned and hanging from the ceiling. He says that the person who lived here was one of the biggest dealers in LA, who is also dead. Mike and the investigators are perplexed and have no idea what happened, but they find a survivor, a woman who can't stop repeating the devil came for them. They spot something that looks like a spear tip in the roof. Right when federal agents enter the building, Keyes, who is the leading federal officer, berates Mike for stepping in and says if he gets in his way, he'll make Mike go missing. Outside, Mike discusses with his team that he doesn't think they are DEA, but another government task force. The feds collect the survivor and take her to their own facility, not letting the cops speak to her. Mike suspects they are chasing something else and orders Lambert to follow Keyes, hoping to find what he's looking for. Later that night, Danny sneaks to the penthouse again, hoping to take a second look. He finds blood trailed across the floor, leading to the outside roof. He climbs out and, stuck in an air vent, he finds a weapon used by the Predator. He is suddenly shocked when he hears Mike's voice saying his name. Jumping back and falling down, the Predator catches him before he hits the floor. It problematically lifts him up and kills him without regard or mercy. In the police station, Mike is being reprimanded by the commander as they have found Danny's body and are saying it's his fault for sending Mike back there. They give him one last chance to fall in line or he's gone. Mike quickly leaves the office and, upon seeing Keyes, chases him down and pins him onto the wall. Violently shaking him, Mike tells him whoever killed Danny will suffer a terrible death as he has been with him for 15 years in the force. Mike meets Leona and Lambert outside, who say they all need to work together to avenge Danny. Lambert says he followed them for 3 days and they were using equipment he's never seen. Lambert says he spotted them driving into the slums but lost them. In the headquarters, meanwhile, Keyes is setting up cameras and radar systems all over the city. Mike, in the meantime, alongside Lambert, visit the morgue when a woman there says Danny was skinned and boned like a fish. Mike hands her the little spearhead used by the Predator. She scans it and tells them it isn't on the periodic table and she can't find out what it is. As Lambert and Mike are outside, a car stops and King Willie's men say he would like to see Mike. He is soon dropped off in an alleyway, who is then met by King Willie. Mike says he wants some information on the one who is doing all the killings on both his side and their side. Willie says whatever it is, it can't be killed and is not human but a demon. Sending him a warning about the creature, the two part ways. When Mike leaves, Willie sees something fall from the roof, then an invisible predator jumps down into a puddle. It reveals itself to him, then decapitates him, collecting his skull as a trophy. The news begins to catch on to the killings, who attribute these gruesome murders to a psycho-vigilante. Mike's team warns him he was right next to Willie when he was killed, and fear Mike is being followed by this murderer. They are then contacted by the forensic scientist, who says at the penthouse traces of cattle and steroids were found. Lambert says he saw Keyes near a slaughterhouse when he was tailing him, and now they know his location. The Predator is still stalking Mike, though, who is visiting Danny's grave. It nearly kills a child but leaves him, realizing he isn't a threat. Mike walks back and sees a necklace that belonged to Danny hanging from a tree. He pulls his gun and scans the area in fear that something is watching him. Elsewhere, Lambert and Leona are on a train and find some gangsters robbing people. They pull their guns out on them and the gangsters pull back in return, causing a standstill when a loud thud can be heard on top of the train. The Predator crawls along the top of the carriage and busts through it and inside, where it begins to kill the gangsters and the cops. They open fire at it, and Lambert tells Leona to get the civilians and go. He begins blasting whatever it is as it kills people one by one. Lambert calls for the Predator's attention away from Leona and starts firing again. It begins to move toward him, unaffected by the bullets. Lambert pulls out a machete in fear when he runs out of bullets and leaps at the Predator in a final hurrah to kill it. The train stops, and as passengers leave, Leona goes back to the train car where Lambert was. Slowly scanning the area for the creature, her face is covered with blood and she enters the carriage, only to once again find people hanging from the ceiling. Not realizing the Predator is right behind her, he picks her up by the throat, and right when he is about to kill her, it discovers she is pregnant and spares her life. Mike quickly gets onto the scene and sees Leona being whisked away by an ambulance and is told she is pregnant and in deep shock. He rushes down to the train and into the carriage. He finds the captain, who is in shock from the scene, telling Mike how civilians and gang members were killed this time. He says he found Lambert's badge but has no idea where he is. Mike walks out the carriage and onto the track. He spots the Predator ripping Jerry's head off and it runs away. It goes onto the street while being invisible and steps onto the cars. The news team and civilians are perplexed and are extremely confused. Mike follows the creature in his car, who is now climbing the rooftops. While following, Keyes' men hit his car with their own and abduct him. They take him to their headquarters and Keyes begins to chat with him. He explains to Mike that the thing they are hunting is not human and is an alien. He shows him footage of the creature and explains it's been here before in Central America, where it killed a special forces team but was eventually stopped. Keyes says that when it was killed, it let off a bomb as big as a nuke, and he wants the technology the creature has. The federal team has learned to track the creature and are convinced he can see only in infrared. So they made a plan to make themselves invisible to the Predator and then freeze it. Keyes and his men move out, telling Mike to sit tight and watch him capture it. They go into the slaughterhouse where they know the creature will be. Switching all the lights inside to ultraviolet, they believe the Predator won't be able to see them. Entering the area and slowly moving in, they creep towards the Predator, who knows it's being watched. It stops and stalks them from above, its infrared vision being disrupted by the UV light. It begins changing the settings on its visuals and is able to see the light emanating from the guns. They detect it moving around them now, and Mike tells them they need to get out of there as they've been made. He gets on the comms with Keyes and warns him and tries to leave and help them, but is stopped by the agents. But he pulls out a gun and commands them to open the door and let him out. Keyes and his team turn their safeties off and begin to panic, unable to get a read on where it is. It leaps right on top of them and spears 2 agents. They open fire as the creature begins to kill them one by one. Meanwhile, Mike takes out an M16 with a grenade launcher and goes to join the men. The Predator takes out its energy beam and blasts another agent, leaving only Keyes alive. It slowly walks toward him, getting ready to make its kill when Mike explodes through the door with a grenade launcher, calling the creature to come and face him. It kills Keyes and runs out to challenge Mike. Outside, the rain disrupts its cloaking ability and Keyes begins to open fire on it with his rifle, hitting it in the shoulder and dismantling some of its equipment. He moves back inside and fires a grenade at it, while it fires a blast as well. Mike is hit in the vest and the grenade misses its target. Running through the warehouse injured, the Predator runs behind him and closes in to make the kill. He turns around when his back is on the wall, pulls out a shotgun and blasts it in the leg, chest, and all over. Falling back, it lays there motionless, and Mike approaches it slowly, hoping it's finally dead. He takes off its mask and peeks upon its grotesque face, where he begins to call it ugly. The creature suddenly wakes up and lifts him off the floor to throw him. Destroying Mike's gun, it approaches and Mike is unable to move and is about to be killed when suddenly Keyes comes up and fires his nitrogen gun at it. It backs off and he tells Mike to leave, and that this fight is between him and the Predator. Keyes chases after it and it throws a disc which instantly kills Keyes. Mike gets up and runs to the rooftop. He takes out his pistol and slowly moves around the area. The injured Predator is on the roof with him though, where it regains its gear and moves around to intercept him. It throws its spear and Mike dodges it, firing a couple shots in its direction. Mike then runs, grabs the spear and tackles the Predator off the roof. They fall onto a ledge and the Predator hangs off, grabbing Mike's arm. It opens a piece of hardware on its arm and is preparing to let off a bomb, but Mike finds the disc weapon the Predator uses and chops off its arm. Destroying the bomb with mere seconds left, it falls all the way down and smacks into a nearby building but is still alive. Mike goes to follow it by sliding down a pipe, but it treats itself by burning its decapitated arm and letting out a giant roar for the intense pain. Mike spots it and begins to make his way to the apartment house it's in. He gets in and it runs away down an elevator shaft. Mike grabs the elevator rope and jumps down following it. He falls down a hole it has cut and finds himself on its ship. Moving around with the Predator's weapon in his hand, he finds its trophy room where it is seen to have killed many creatures. Just then, it fires a net on Mike, who quickly cuts himself out. The Predator shows itself once again and the duo begin to clash blades in a fierce fight. It slices Mike across his torso and he shrivels onto the floor. As it is about to make its final move, he thrusts the disc deep into its chest, causing the Predator to scream in pain as he rips it out and falls. Mike gets close to it, confirming that it is dead once and for all. As he moves away, 3 red dots are placed onto his head and more Predators reveal themselves, about 8 of them fully surrounding him. He jokingly tells them who's next while dropping the disc and accepting his fate. They each look to each other, taking the body of their fallen comrade, and one by one they all go invisible. The leader turns and looks Mike in his eyes, and he grabs a weapon from his belt and hands it to Mike.
Take it.
Handing him a human gun from the 1715s, the Predators let Mike be and the ship goes to take off. Mike runs out the back and jumps out just in time to avoid the explosive engines from incinerating him. He slowly begins to walk out the tunnel, his body injured and covered in ash. A helicopter spots him and lands with an agent coming out and seeing Mike bloody and injured. The agent becomes angry, knowing they missed their chance to capture alien technology. Mike just smiles at him, saying they'll get another chance as the movie concludes. Predators 2010 opens up in the middle of the sky where an unconscious man is plummeting rapidly. His name is Royce. He wakes up just in time to deploy his parachute, narrowly avoiding a crash through the thick trees of a dense jungle. Despite the parachute, he hits the ground hard and blacks out again. Moments later, he regains consciousness, disoriented and unsure of where he is or how he got there. However, he notices that his mercenary gear and weapons are still with him. Suddenly, another man falls nearby. This man, Cuchillo, is part of a Mexican cartel, and he quickly aims his weapon at Royce. But before either of them can react, a third man plummets between them. His parachute failed to open, and he dies instantly upon impact. Out of nowhere, gunfire erupts, forcing Royce to swiftly dodge the bullets and flank the shooter. The shooter turns out to be Nikolai, a Russian commando who only remembers being at war before everything went dark. Royce and Cuchillo share similar stories. They were going about their lives when a bright light appeared, knocking them out, and then they woke up in the sky. As they try to make sense of their situation, they notice Isabel, a sniper, aiming her weapon at them. She explains that she's familiar with many jungles, but this one is unlike any she has seen. Isabel also mentions seeing more people fall from the sky. The group decides to stick together to search for the others, unaware that a Yakuza member named Hanzo is silently observing them. As Hanzo tries to follow, he steps into the mud and quickly decides to remove his shoes to move more quietly. The group ventures further into the jungle and stumbles upon 2 men locked in a fierce struggle. One is Stans, a death row inmate, and the other is Mombasa, a rebel from a South African organization. When they notice the others approaching, they stop fighting and agree to join forces, recognizing that there's safety in numbers. Stans then points out a figure stuck in a tree. This turns out to be Dr. Edwin, whose parachute got caught in a branch. Royce shoots the branch, causing Edwin to fall into a pond below. Once rescued, Edwin shares a similar story. He too has no idea where they are or how they got there. As the group moves on, Isabel tries her best to ignore Stan's unsettling and inappropriate comments. Eventually, they come across Hanzo, who is standing frozen in the mud, staring at a strange totem surrounded by bones. Mombasa observes that it looks like a hunter has been collecting trophies, explaining that in his culture, the warrior with the best trophies earns the most respect. Nikolai suggests that they might be part of some kind of test, but Isabel disagrees, noting that not all of them are military. Cuchillo speculates that it could be a ransom situation, while Stans believes they might be part of an experiment. The idea of being dead and trapped in hell also crosses their minds. Royce quickly shuts down the speculation, insisting that the reason behind their situation doesn't matter. What's important is finding a way to escape. The group follows Royce as they continue through the jungle. At one point, Nikolai is drawn to a beautiful flower, but Edwin stops him, warning that it's poisonous and could cause complete paralysis. Grateful for the warning, Nikolai vows to protect Edwin in the future. After pushing forward a bit more, Isabel asks Royce to slow down and shows him something curious. She creates an improvised compass and places it on the water, but it just keeps spinning in circles, never settling. In response, Royce points out something equally strange. The sun hasn't moved since they arrived, making it difficult to navigate. He then shares his theory with Isabel, suggesting that because they're all skilled fighters plus a doctor, they were likely chosen for a reason. Isabel speculates that Royce was probably a soldier before becoming a mercenary, but he doesn't reveal any more about his past. As they continue walking, the group stumbles upon a large cage. Carefully, they remove the sheet covering it, only to discover that it's empty. It appears the cage was dropped from above just like them, and the bloodstains suggest some kind of creature was inside. When they look up, they notice several more cages hanging from the trees, realizing they might soon have company. The group continues on their way when suddenly, Mombasa trips over a branch, accidentally setting off a hidden trap. Instantly, they're faced with a series of deadly obstacles which they barely manage to dodge. During the chaos, Isabel falls into a hole, clinging to the edge. Royce quickly rushes over and pulls her to safety just in time. Using the scope on her weapon, Isabel scans the area to locate the person who set the traps, only to find that he's already dead. Edwin examines the body, noting that it has been decomposing for about 2 weeks. Nikolai checks the dead man's pockets and discovers he was a USA Special Forces soldier. Royce concludes that the traps weren't meant for them but for whatever creature killed the soldier, and based on the trap's size and position, it must be something much larger than them. As they resume their journey, Mombasa feels like something is moving among the trees but decides to ignore it. Unfortunately, he's not mistaken. A predator is indeed watching them closely, mimicking everything they say. Moments later, the group finally reaches the edge of the jungle and looks up at the sky, only to be hit with a startling revelation. Strange planets and stars fill the sky, confirming they're not on Earth. Royce quickly decides that their only option is to find whoever brought them here and force them to send the group back home. As they re-enter the jungle, a drone suddenly flies past their heads, startling everyone, especially Stans. Frustrated by his lack of weapons, Stans angrily demands a gun from Mombasa and tensions rise. Before they can start another fight, they hear growling coming from the jungle. In an instant, a terrifying beast charges at them, and the group opens fire. They manage to kill the creature quickly, but soon realize there are many more of its kind approaching. Without enough guns, Edwin and Stans decide to make a run for it. As Edwin trips, a monster closes in on him, but Isabel takes it down with a precise shot. Meanwhile, Nikolai and Hanzo work together to kill another beast, and Royce takes one down using just his knife. Stans is attacked by a monster as well, but Mombasa arrives just in time to save him with a few well-placed shots. Edwin scrambles up a tree while Isabel is cornered by another beast. Desperate, she threatens herself, but just then a whistle echoes through the jungle, and all the beasts suddenly retreat. The group regathers and comes to a grim conclusion. They're being hunted. Those creatures were like hunting dogs testing their prey, and the whistle called them back. This entire planet is a massive hunting ground, and everyone brought here is merely prey. Suddenly, Mombasa realizes someone is missing. They hear Cuchillo's voice calling for help from somewhere in the trees. Following the sound, they find Cuchillo kneeling, severely injured. Isabel wants to help him, but Royce stops her, insisting it's a trap. To prove it, he throws a stone, triggering no response from Cuchillo. Stans points out that there's nothing they can do for him, and the others agree, leaving despite Isabel's protests. As they walk away, Isabel, unable to bear his suffering, decides to end Cuchillo's pain and shoots him. But then she hears his voice calling for help again. Horrified, Isabel runs, realizing too late that Cuchillo had been dead all along. The group continues their journey, with Royce carefully analyzing the few clues they've gathered to understand how their enemy operates. He figures out that the hunter wants them to run, so instead he suggests they follow the dog tracks to confront the hunter directly. After some time, they stumble upon a camp, and what they find is both horrifying and disturbing. Bodies of various races are impaled on stakes, and the ground is littered with the remains of different creatures. It becomes clear that humans aren't the only species brought to this planet as prey. At the back of the camp, they're startled to discover a large, grotesque creature tied to a stake, a predator. Royce notices that Isabel is reacting strangely to the sight of the predator, while Nikolai gets closer and prods the alien with his weapon, causing it to roar ferociously. The creature is still alive. Isabel urges the group to leave immediately, when suddenly a barrage of spears shoots out and kills Mombasa. Royce emerges from the shadows, firing his weapon wildly. The others join in, which reveals the hunter is another predator using its cloaking device. The group quickly takes off, but the predator retaliates, shooting lasers that cause explosions and flames to erupt all around them. This causes them to go tumbling down a hill and plunge into a river below. They swim to safety, unaware that a drone has detected their location and relayed it back to the camp, where it's revealed that there are 3 hunting predators. Once the group finds safety in a cave, Isabel angrily confronts Royce, hitting him for using them as bait. However, Royce remains unapologetic, arguing that they've now learned crucial information about their enemies, including their strength and hunting tactics. Royce then presses Isabel about her reaction to the predator earlier, suggesting she must have encountered one before. Isabel admits that she's heard a story about aliens resembling these creatures being seen in Guatemala back in 1987, referencing an event from Dutch and his team. With this new knowledge, Royce proposes setting up a defensive perimeter to force the predators into a choke point. The others agree to help. They take their positions in the jungle, with Isabel using her scope to watch for any movement among the trees. When the enemy doesn't attack, Royce suspects that they might be aware of the traps. They quickly adjust their plan, using Edwin as bait. Edwin runs through the jungle until the enemy begins chasing him. Isabel, using her sniper skills, takes a shot at the hunter, but when the group approaches the body, they find that it isn't a predator, it's just another victim from the cages. Realizing something is wrong as Isabel's missed her shot, they suddenly hear a voice and someone appears behind Royce using a cloaking device. The figure removes his mask, revealing that he is a human named Noland. He warns them to be quieter to avoid attracting the real hunters. Noland explains that he has been tracking the group since their arrival, and noticing that a storm is coming, offers to lead them to his hideout, an old broken-down ship hidden in the jungle. Noland, who used to be in the military, reveals that he was dropped onto this planet 10 seasons ago, becoming the sole survivor of his group. Since then, he has survived by scavenging from both the predators and their victims. Though his time here has clearly taken a toll on his sanity, he sometimes talks to an imaginary friend. Noland has also learned a few things about the predators, having managed to kill 2 or 3 of them. He explains that it's crucial to hide one's heat signature to avoid detection, and that there's a rivalry between the larger and smaller predators, which likely explains why they saw one tied up earlier. Each season, new victims are brought to the planet, and 3 predators arrive with new technology and tactics, constantly evolving in their hunt. Royce realizes that if the predators keep returning each season, they must have a ship somewhere on the planet. However, Nolan points out that even if they found it, they wouldn't be able to pilot it. After sharing this, Nolan goes to bed, leaving the group to chat. Nikolai shows Edwin a picture of his kids, and Stans reveals a creepy tattoo of his sister. Hanzo finds a samurai sword and admires it, surprising Edwin, who realizes Hanzo does speak English. Hanzo explains that he's been silent because he was punished for speaking too much. Isabel then shares her theory with Royce. They were chosen because on Earth they were predators themselves, making them monsters in their own right. But Royce remains fixated on finding the predator ship, believing that they might convince the captured predator in the camp to help them fly it. After all, the enemy of their enemy is a friend. Suddenly, the room starts filling with smoke, and they realize Noland is gone. The door is blocked, leading Edwin to suspect that Noland is trying to kill them to steal their supplies. Outside, Noland is seen fanning the fire, while inside, Royce detonates a bomb against the wall. Though it doesn't crack the wall, Royce wasn't trying to break through. He was making noise to attract a nearby predator. The plan works, and soon Noland finds his escape route blocked by a predator who immediately kills him with a laser blast. The predator then hits a panel on the wall, creating a small access point into the group's room, but it doesn't attack further, merely toying with them. Royce cautiously approaches the hole and fires a flare, confirming that the predator is no longer there. The group pushes the panel off and finally escapes, but now they must navigate through dark, narrow corridors. During their escape, Edwin accidentally gets separated from the group and begins shouting for help, lighting another flare. Unfortunately, this attracts the attention of the predator. Hearing a growl in the darkness, Edwin panics and runs until he finally reunites with the group, begging them to help him. However, they choose to leave him behind. Just as the predator is about to attack Edwin, Nikolai arrives to help. Edwin flees while Nikolai bravely faces the alien, but the fight doesn't last long. The predator stabs Nikolai and lifts him with its blade. In his final act, Nikolai activates a detonator, causing an explosion that kills them both, allowing the group to escape just in time. Outside the ship, Stans begins celebrating their victory, only to be abruptly knocked down by another predator that deactivates its invisibility cloak. The beast turns its attention to Royce, but Stans holds the creature off for the team to escape. Enraged by the loss of its prey, the predator brutally kills Stans. Its roar catches the attention of the third predator, who immediately starts tracking the group's escape. Realizing they're being followed, Hanzo tells the others to go on without him, deciding to stay behind and buy them some time. He removes his jacket and unsheathes his katana just as the Predator finds him. The two face off, with the Predator drawing its own blade. A fierce sword fight ensues, with Hanzo initially pushed back by the Predator's immense strength. Despite this, Hanzo fights on, and the brutal exchange stops when both launch simultaneous attacks, striking each other at the same moment. With both also falling to the ground, they die at the same time. Meanwhile, Edwin accidentally steps on a trap, leaving him unable to walk. Royce observes that the trap was designed not to kill but to immobilize, making Edwin dead weight. Royce suggests they either leave Edwin behind or set a trap using him as bait. In response, Edwin pulls out Nikolai's family picture, pretending the children are his own in a bid for sympathy. Isabel refuses to abandon or harm Edwin, so Royce decides to leave them both behind and goes off on his own. Royce eventually makes it to the camp and approaches the captured Predator, offering to free it in exchange for passage off the planet. When the Predator indicates it understands him, Royce cuts the chains binding it. The Predator responds by grabbing Royce by the neck, but after a close inspection it releases him. The Predator then retrieves its mask and activates its equipment. On its arm brace, it pulls up a star map of the universe, stopping on Earth, signaling its agreement to the deal. It then summons its spaceship. Meanwhile, Isabel helps Edwin walk, but they accidentally trigger another trap and get caught in a net. The third Predator, who has been tracking them, appears and drags them back to the camp. There it throws the humans into a pit, only to notice that its alien prey has been freed. A fierce battle erupts between the two Predators. As the Predators fight, Royce seizes the opportunity to make a run for the ship. The spacecraft begins to take off, but the Predators' fight intensifies. After exchanging brutal blows and shots, the Predator that had been pursuing the group gains the upper hand and decapitates the ship's owner. In its moment of triumph, the victorious Predator destroys the ship before it can leave the planet. In the pit, Isabel expresses no regrets about staying to help Edwin, but she's caught off guard when Edwin suddenly attacks her from behind with a poison-coated scalpel. It turns out Edwin is a psychopathic murderer who feels at home among the other monsters on this planet and has no desire to leave. Just as he's about to kill Isabel, Royce appears, having never made it to the ship. Royce helps them both out of the pit, but Isabel, paralyzed by the poison, is unable to warn him about Edwin. As they move away from the pit, Royce checks on Isabel and Edwin tries to launch a surprise attack from behind. However, Royce reacts quickly, grabbing Edwin by the neck and using his own poison against him. Royce then sets a trap with Edwin, leaving him as bait for the Predator. When the Predator approaches and touches Edwin, the trap is sprung. Several grenades detonate, killing Edwin, starting a fire and sending the Predator flying. Once the Predator recovers, it finds Royce waiting, but Royce uses the flames to disrupt the Predator's vision, its only way of seeing him. Royce grabs an axe and begins a hit-and-run strategy, attacking the Predator and then retreating into the flames to repeat the process. After taking several blows, the Predator focuses on locating Royce's heartbeat and shoots the tree where Royce is hiding, injuring him. The Predator then begins tossing Royce around, preparing to finish him off. But before it can, Isabel drags herself over to her weapon and shoots the Predator, wounding it. Though still alive, the Predator retaliates by throwing a dagger into Isabel's shoulder. Seizing the distraction, Royce retrieves his axe and repeatedly strikes the Predator, finally ending the battle by decapitating it. Afterward, Royce reunites with Isabel, and together they watch as more cages begin falling from the sky. Realizing time is running out, Royce declares that they must find a way to leave this planet soon. The Predator opens in outer space where two spacecrafts engage in a fierce battle when one ship suddenly opens a wormhole and escapes just in time to avoid its pursuer. The fleeing ship heads toward Earth and, clearly damaged, the pilot, a Predator, ejects in an escape pod before the ship begins its descent. Meanwhile, in a Mexican jungle, sniper Quinn McKenna is on a mission to take down some cartel members. Just as he lines up his first shot, the Predator ship crashes nearby, sending Quinn tumbling. When he regains consciousness moments later, he heads to the crash site to investigate and stumbles upon some of the Predator's armor. Suddenly, Quinn is startled by his teammate Dupree, who offers him a bag to stash the armor. While trying on the Predator's arm brace, they hear a noise in the trees and discover the body of another teammate hanging upside down from a branch. Before they can react, the Predator attacks them and kills Dupree. As Quinn approaches, the arm brace activates, firing a shot that knocks out the Predator. With the Predator now visible due to all the blood, Quinn grabs his gear and makes a quick escape. As he leaves, the brace releases a mysterious ball which he catches and takes with him. Soon after, a special team led by Traeger arrives at the crash site to retrieve the Predator and any salvageable technology. The next morning, Quinn reaches a nearby town, enters a bar, and clears out the patrons by brandishing his gun. He then pays the bartender to mail his bag to his son's house, keeping the small ball with him. When he discovers that the ball can make him invisible, he swallows it with a drink. Meanwhile, Quinn's son Rory, a boy with autism, is in a classroom observing some boys playing chess. In the hallway, two older boys pull the fire alarm, causing chaos. Rory, overwhelmed by the sensory overload, stands back in fear. The boys then enter the classroom and knock over all the chess pieces while also mocking Rory before leaving. After the alarm stops, Rory meticulously places the chess pieces back where they were, demonstrating his incredible memory. Later at home, Rory receives the box that Quinn sent. At a park, three special agents approach Dr. Casey and insist she come with them, offering no explanation until they're in the car. They show her photos of a crashed escape pod and a predator, revealing that these aliens have visited Earth before, with the visits becoming more frequent. That evening, Rory's mother Emily brings masks for trick-or-treating, but Rory refuses, fearing the bullies will still recognize him. Later, Rory heads to the basement, opens the package his dad sent and discovers the predator's gear, which immediately captures his interest. As he examines the arm brace, it activates, and Rory begins using it like a computer. Meanwhile, Quinn has been captured and is undergoing a psych evaluation. Aware that Treger and his team are trying to keep everything secret, he's then placed on a bus with other prisoners who act bizarrely, teasing him and dismissing his claims about seeing an alien. As the bus departs, Casey arrives to meet Treger and his team of scientists. She's shocked to see various alien artifacts and most notably a sedated predator. After decontamination, Casey is allowed a closer look. Treger explains that they've dubbed the alien race predators because they seem to enjoy hunting, and recent studies show this one has traces of human DNA. Curious about the implications, Casey demands to speak with Quinn. Soon, the bus receives a message to turn back. Meanwhile, the second ship from the earlier space chase opens a wormhole and arrives in Earth's atmosphere, bringing with it 2 alien hounds and a predator who begins tracking the signal from Rory's arm brace. The military detects the spacecraft and sends fighter jets after it, but they struggle to keep up with the advanced alien technology. At the facility, the captured predator suddenly wakes up. Despite the scientists' attempts to restrain it, the predator easily breaks free and begins a brutal killing spree. Amid the chaos, Casey grabs a tranquilizer gun from a dead guard and snatches an alien sample before fleeing. However, she's forced to go through a decontamination shower before the security system will open the door. As the predator searches for its missing helmet and arm brace, it spots Casey in the showers but ignores her, seeing her as no threat and using the open door to escape. It grabs a helmet the scientists had taken from other aliens, activates it, and locates Rory's position. Despite a scientist warning Casey not to let the predator escape, alarms blare throughout the facility as the predator slaughters every soldier in its path. The bus comes to a stop and the soldiers on board finally see the predator running on the roof, convincing them of Quinn's story. They quickly devise a plan to escape. The group starts a fight to lure the guards inside and overpower them to seize their weapons and throw them off the bus. Both Casey and the bus chase after the predator, who spots the other spaceship flying by with the 2 jets in pursuit and takes off after them. Casey leaps from the roof and lands on the bus, attempting to shoot at the alien but accidentally shoots her own foot instead. Quinn tries to fire as well, but the predator disables a tire, bringing the bus to a halt. While the group searches for another vehicle, the jets continue their attack on the spacecraft, which suddenly turns invisible and destroys both jets within seconds. Just as Casey is about to be killed by guards, the group rescues her on motorcycles they've found, escaping the scene. Meanwhile, the predator sneaks into the back of a truck, killing the soldiers inside as the vehicle leaves the facility. Not far from there, the other alien finally lands and sends its hounds to search for its enemy. Meanwhile, the soldiers take refuge in a motel room waiting for Casey to wake up. When she regains consciousness, she panics, thinking she's in danger, and grabs a shotgun. Quinn quickly calms her down, explaining that they're on her side and that it was Traeger's men who tried to kill her for stealing the sample. Realizing they need each other, Casey agrees to work with them and shares what she knows. This leads Quinn to the realization that the predator is likely going after Rory to retrieve its gear. At the same time, Rory, who has discovered that the predator's helmet is functional, tries it on. He sees a clip showing how the predators enhance themselves by injecting their bodies with the DNA of other species, explaining the human DNA found at the facility. Pleased with the discovery, Rory decides to go trick-or-treating, using the helmet and arm brace as part of his costume. By the time the soldiers arrive at the house, Rory has already left. Quinn explains the situation to Emily, who provides him with a weapon to help save their son. Initially, the other soldiers are hesitant to get involved again, but after Emily vouches for Quinn's skills, they reluctantly agree to join the mission. They decide to split into pairs to cover more ground in their search for Rory. Back to Rory, he's unfortunately recognized by the prankster duo, who immediately start mocking him. Trying to ignore them, Rory knocks on a nearby house. But the homeowner joins in on the teasing, which problematically triggers the helmet that kills the man as well as his house. The explosion catches the attention of Quinn and Casey, who rush toward the scene. Terrified, Rory drops the helmet and runs to hide in a nearby baseball field where he encounters a dog and quickly befriends it. Just then, the alien hounds appear, but before they can attack, Quinn arrives and drives them off with his car. The rest of the team soon shows up, and while Casey takes Rory to safety, the others engage the hounds. Quinn is chased by one of the hounds, but he manages to blow it up by shooting grenades into its mouth, while the other hound is gunned down by the team. As Casey begins taking samples from the fallen hound, a predator suddenly appears, grabbing Nettles and threatening to kill him unless the group drops their weapons. They comply, but Quinn quickly seizes his weapon again and shoots the predator, forcing it to release Nettles. With everyone rushing to hide inside Rory's school, the alien blows up the front door. Knowing what the predator is after, Quinn takes the mini-computer from Rory's arm brace. The predator tracks them down and grabs Quinn by the neck, demanding the device. Quinn hands it over, but before the predator can react, it is yanked out of the window by another larger predator. As the humans make their escape in a vehicle, the two predators engage in a brutal fight. The larger predator quickly gains the upper hand, smashing the smaller one into a car and ripping out its skull and spine. As police sirens approach, the larger predator checks the humans' identities on the device, then activates its cloaking device to disappear and evade capture. Afterwards, Quinn calls Emily to check on her, but government agents are monitoring her, so she destroys her phone to prevent them from tracking Quinn. Meanwhile, Traeger and his team find the dead predator's body. Traeger deduces that the larger predator was hunting this one for something it had stolen and decides they need to find whatever was so important. He realizes that finding Rory is the key to locating the predator's ship. Meanwhile, the group is hiding in a barn. As Casey examines the sample, she confirms that the predators are upgrading themselves. Suddenly, they hear noises and discover that the other hound has survived the gunshot and followed them. Nettles stops them from shooting it because it's behaving like a friendly dog and might be useful. Casey tries to communicate with the hound, but at that moment, Traeger arrives in a helicopter. She quickly throws something to distract the hound and hide it. The rest of the group hides as Traeger demands to know where the arm brace is. When Quinn and Casey refuse to answer, the agents rough up Quinn while Traeger questions Casey. He explains that the predators know humans are destroying the planet and are gathering the best DNA before humanity goes extinct. At Emily's house, agents search for the alien gear when suddenly the predator bursts in. Emily hides while the predator swiftly kills all the agents, then examines Rory's desk and discovers a map indicating the ship's location. Rory is currently drawing that same map, and the agent watching him realizes this and informs Traeger. Traeger immediately takes Rory away in the helicopter, leaving a few men behind to eliminate Quinn and Casey. Quinn, using his skills, quickly takes down 2 agents. When a third agent is about to kill Casey, the hound intervenes and vomits a grenade. Casey uses the distraction to hit the agent with a chair and jumps away just before the grenade explodes. On his way out, Quinn finds Nebraska beating up the last guard. They then regroup with Casey, and as they wonder how to escape, the rest of the team arrives in a helicopter to rescue them, with the hound following on the ground. Soon, everyone arrives at the site of the other ship. Traeger forces Rory to unlock the door, and they enter, with Traeger ordering his men to seize everything. Suddenly, one of the agents is thrown aside, revealing that Quinn has been following them using the cloaking device from the ball. Quinn swiftly takes out the guards, captures Traeger, and drags him outside where the rest of his group is engaged in a fight with Traeger's agents. As the group secures the area, one of Quinn's friends is suddenly attacked by the predator. Before dying, he manages to fire a flare, creating a distraction that allows Traeger to hit Quinn and escape, sparking a gunfight between Quinn's and Traeger's men. Quinn hides with Rory, giving him the cloaking device, while the predator enters the fray, killing most of Traeger's men and causing a nearby jeep to explode. Inside the ship, the predator broadcasts a message over the speakers, causing pain to everyone's ears before it translates. The predator announces it came to destroy the ship to prevent anyone from using it, and declares it wants McKenna as its prize, recognizing him as the best warrior of the group. It ends the message by setting a timer to blow up the ship. Realizing the urgency, Quinn and Traeger agree to set aside their differences and work together. Traeger attempts to grab some alien gear before escaping, but the hound intervenes, stopping him. Both teams retreat into the forest just as the predator leaves the ship moments before it explodes. Seconds later, a strange noise fills the air and suddenly a predator weapon flies in, severing an agent's arm. Seeing the agent as useless now, Traeger shoots him, and the predator steals the body to feed. The teams slowly back away, opening fire as 2 of Quinn's friends volunteer to act as bait. The noise attracts the predator, who leaps in and begins slaughtering the humans, seemingly unaffected by their gunfire. Traeger tries to kill the predator with one of its own weapons, but it backfires, blowing off his head. The predator catches on fire but barely seems affected, instead continuing its rampage. It severely injures the 2 friends who, realizing their wounds are too severe to survive, decide to end each other's lives to avoid further suffering. Soon, the predator returns, shoving Casey and Quinn aside to grab Rory, who is the real McKenna it has been searching for all along because he represents the next step in human evolution. As the predator dumps Rory in its ship and takes off to leave Earth, Quinn, Nebraska, and Nettles manage to jump onto the spacecraft as it lifts off, pushing Casey away before she can join them. Inside the ship, Rory notices the predator activating a force field and warns his father through the comms, allowing Quinn to dodge just in time. Unfortunately, Nebraska ends up outside the force field, and Nettles loses his legs before plummeting to his death. Determined to help, Nebraska sacrifices himself by diving into the ship's turbine, causing it to malfunction and begin falling. Quinn uses the force field as cover to sneak inside the ship, but can only manage a few shots at the predator before the violent shaking causes him to fall, his leg catching on some rope and saving him from the fall. The spacecraft eventually crashes, and the predator emerges to confront Quinn. Despite his best efforts, Quinn struggles to overpower the formidable alien. As the predator is about to kill Quinn, Casey, using the cloaking device, appears and leaps onto the predator, shooting it in the head. After she falls away, Quinn shoves the alien over the edge, and Rory activates the force field, severing the predator's arm. Casey catches the arm and throws it to Quinn, who uses it to shoot the predator multiple times in the head, finally killing it. Afterward, Quinn gathers items from his fallen comrades and takes a moment with Rory to honor the men who sacrificed their lives. Sometime later, Quinn visits a new government facility, preparing to combat future alien threats with Rory's knowledge. They reveal the mysterious item the Predator had stolen and was being hunted for: a powerful suit of armor called the Predator Killer. It appears the alien intended to bring this armor to Earth to help humans defend themselves against its own race. When the armor activates, it briefly wraps around a scientist looking like it might open fire, but soon powers down and retracts. Impressed, Quinn declares that this suit is now his.